this is Miss Litton, and this is my wonderful Period 1 class. Say good morning. And we are freezing because we have no heater. Okay, and we've started chapter, what chapter is this?
37.
37. Okay, sure, no problem. Chapter 37, and we already did an overview of the evolution of the nervous system. And we ended on the mammalian nervous system, and now we're focusing on the neuron and its structure and its function. So when you look at this picture right here, remembering from your ed puzzle in preparation for today, these things right here are dendrites. What do? They receive information. Now, the message they receive is probably going to be some sort of chemical, okay, that's either going to trigger an action potential in this neuron or not. In this particular neuron, the cell body is right here, but it doesn't always have to be. It's here usually if there's some sort of processing that needs to take place. What's inside of a cell body? A nucleus. It's labeled right there in the middle, okay? It's the thing that looks like an eye. Okay, so there is a nucleus right there in that cell body. This long portion of the neuron is called a what? Axon. And the axon goes away. Okay? Now, what you see along this long axon is a myelin sheath. Out in the peripheral nervous system, that would be generated by what's called a Schwann cell. It could be a glial cell here in the central nervous system, a support cell doing that. But it serves a purpose. Do you remember what the purpose is of that myelin sheath?
I think it, doesn't it protect it? I don't know.
It insulates it. What else?
It speeds up the signal.
Speeds up the signal. Good. Think about it like, I don't know anything about being an electrician or wiring, but I'm pretty sure all the wires have that little plastic coat on it, and they're different colors and things like that, right? So that's protecting it so there's no crosstalk between wires. But in this case, not only does it do that, but when your action potential is traveling, it can jump, 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 jump. Okay? Now, here at the very end, if you look what's going on there. Okay. Un momento. Does anybody see my other pen? Here we go. Okay, now it's short. Okay. At this very end right here, at the end of this axon, where one neuron goes to another, possibly it could be a neuron, then it would be a synapse. It could be going to a muscle. It could be synapsing with a muscle. It's called a neuromuscular junction, or it could be attached to a gland. Okay? Right here at this point, this is where a chemical would get released. It could be an excitatory chemical, which would facilitate the process, or it could be what? Inhibitory. Okay? So what we want to understand is how does the message travel along the length of this neuron? And it travels really fast. Did I have you clap before? Okay, hold up 2 hands. Everybody, 2 hands, 2 hands. Oh, Google is responding. Stop it. Clap 3 times. Clap twice. Touch your nose. Touch your ear. Clap once. Clap twice. Hey, do you see how well you did that? You're like cheerleaders at a competition, okay? I want you to think how fast what just happened, okay? My mouth had to make sounds. I had to use muscles and my tongue and air coming out of my respiratory system, right? These sounds travel through the air. They hit your pinna. Your pinna directed them down your auditory canal, right? Your auditory canal, then they hit your tympanic membrane, like your eardrum, and it started vibrating. Once it started vibrating, it vibrated your malleus, your incus, and your stapes, your smallest bones of your body. On your stapes, it's attached to your oval window on your cochlea, and inside there's fluid, and the fluid starts moving. Membranes start moving. A bacillar membrane starts moving up and down like a waterbed, like this, because of the oval window moving. On top of that is a hair cell. Hair cell's embedded in a tectorial membrane. When it goes up and down, it bends the hair, sends an action potential, goes to your brain. Right here, grab here. Okay, it's your parietal lobe. This is where you process. And there you processed, clap 3 times. You then sent information right here to the front of your brain, your motor area. And it sent out motor neurons to your arms, okay? And you knew what to do when I said clap. It's not like wonder what she means by that, okay? I don't understand that question, okay? You heard clap 3 times. You didn't go loud, hard, soft. No, you're okay? And all of you did it very well. You didn't go, I missed, I'm going to get it next time. So close, okay? You all did it. And not only did you clap 3 times, you recognized that you were in a social situation and you didn't want to be considered different, so we would select against you and go, okay? Okay? So you did it in conjunction. Literally that quickly you perceived, this is the pace we're clapping, I got it. Okay, I don't want, you know, you didn't want to do any of that. Do you see how fast you did that? There wasn't any big deal. You just responded. Hold your hands right now. Clap twice. Clap 3 times. Now, that was amazing. Look how fast all of that. Process back out. Why? Part of it has to do with your highly evolved brain and all those crevices in your brain that increases all that, what? Surface area, right? These myelin sheaths that move things right along. It's electrical right here. It's chemical at the synapse. Which one do you think is faster, the electrical or the chemical? Electrochemical is where it slows down, okay? Every medicine, every drug you ever take, okay, even if it's just Advil, okay, you know what it affects? Synapses. Because when that chemical comes across, if I don't want to feel pain, I need something to block the receptor. And if something else gets in there for the receptor of pain, even though I have damage and hurt or a headache, I'm not going to be aware of it. Does that make sense? When you have surgery, okay, let's say I'm having my gut cut open, okay? I don't want to be like, ah, you know, and screaming inside, okay? I think they've made movies about that. But you are somehow taking your central nervous system and disabling it in such a way that no messages are passing, not enough to kill you, but enough that you don't sense pain. Yes?
So if someone gives you a shot, like the surgery, to make you go numb, what's happening?
Okay, what you're doing is you have sensory neurons and you have motor neurons, right? I want motor neurons going to my heart. I still want it to beat, right? So you don't want to just like, let's shut the system off. We can't afford to do that, right? So you're targeting with different chemicals, usually the synapses for things like pain. You're affecting like your brain stem, your medulla oblongata, and putting you asleep so you're not aware of it. So people who have that job, that's a pretty important job and a scary job because you're basically saying, I've shut this person down enough that I'm not killing them, but I'm making sure that they don't feel this pain. And then I'm bringing them back out of it. And when people get brought out of surgery, especially teenage young boys, they can come out all different ways. They can come out really angry, like a Hulk you don't even know. And they're like, bah! And they can be that way, and they can also be super sentimental, where they fall in love with the nurse that's bringing out of them. My son, who was 17 when he had knee surgery, or when he broke 2 bones in a football game, came out, he was hitting on the 35-year-old nurse to an embarrassing extent. Like, where's my nurse, Mom? And it's how that affects your body and your chemistry. She goes like, it happens all the time, you know. And it wasn't like she was like ba-ba-boom walking by. It's our body chemistry, and you're having a drug, and it's suppressing it and coming out, and it does different things to you. Yes?
Also going slightly off topic here.
As if I'm not already, but go ahead.
Is there any difference between an anesthetic and an analgesic?
Oh, do you want to explain that right there?
Both of them are supposed to like block pain, right?
Right.
So I'm wondering like what the difference is between.
I don't know the chemistry behind it, but I bet you could Google it and find out, you know. But there are different ways. There are different ways you can block those neurons or the activities of those neurons, for sure. So let's look at that in a little more depth, okay? So you have support cells. Can you find the neuron in that picture?
There are many.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you see the one we just talked about, though?
Yes.
Right here, you can see the neuron, but then you can see all these other cells that provide support to that neuron. So on your notes, go to where it says define. Neurons are the functional unit of the nervous system. Nerve cells, they receive sensory information. They convey the information to an integration center, brain or spinal cord, and conduct signals from the integration center to an effector. Now, there are only 2 kinds of effectors in your body. Do you know what the 2 effectors are? There's only one way you respond your entire life to everything. Oh, sorry, only two ways you respond to everything. Muscles. One more thing. Muscles and glands. You respond your entire life. Everything you ever do is a muscle or a gland. Think about it.
That's so true.
It is true. She's saying that's so true. How is she doing that? She's using muscles to make her mouth go, that's so true. And her eyebrows came up a little bit to indicate surprise. Okay? So maybe her heart beat a little bit when she goes, wow. Okay? So everything there is just muscle and gland. So from an integration center to an effector, and in parentheses you can put glands and muscles. Neuroglial cells, or neuroglia, they provide support and nourishment to the neurons. They provide support and nourishment to the neurons. Okay, so here is a neuron for us. And you already gave me some information right there. What does a dendrite do? Receives. Okay, so the dendrite receives information. Now the neuron I'm looking, if you're not colorblind, is green. Okay, do you see what are these things right here? These creepy blue things up there.
No.
What did you say? What do you think those blue things are? Other neurons. They're look right here. See the end of this right here? Okay? These things are like the little feet. Those are axonal bulbs from other neurons. So this junction between two neurons, what do we call that? Synapse. Okay? So I can see a synapse here, and a synapse here, and a synapse here. Yes?
Is the, okay, I have a dumb question, but is the axon still considered like part of the cell? Like part of the
Yeah,
cell?
this whole thing is the neuron. It's kind of like, this is my head, these are my arms, right? So the whole thing, we're a neuron. So there's a receiving part and a sending part. Okay? So here's the cell body. What's inside of it? What? Then focus. What's inside the cell body? The nucleus. That's what you want to know about that. Okay? So the nucleus is here inside the cell body. The axon goes away. Okay? And so it's going to take whatever impulse you have and run along the length of it. With this axon, does it look to you, is it myelinated or unmyelinated? Unmyelinated. This particular one is unmyelinated. You don't see any myelin sheath covering this one. Okay? And then right here is the synapse. What's happening here at the synapse? The junction between the two. Okay? Could I please have Blue explain the structure of this neuron? Go ahead, Blue one.
There's no myelin, like, does that mean they're responsible for slower?
Yes, it does mean that.
Okay, so you have like the cell body, which is cell body, and then you have the with the cell body, and like the and then synapse is the junction between neurons. So like the neurons and neuron jump the nucleus is the dendrites, which is the stimulus. They receive things.
All right, so on your notes, dendrites, you can fill that in, receive chemical message, and usually send it to the cell body. Not always. I'll give you an example. They receive the chemical message and usually send it to the cell body. The cell body contains a nucleus for processing. The cell body contains a nucleus for processing. And the axon takes the resulting message away, ultimately passing a chemical message to the next neuron or effector at the synapse. To the next neuron or effector at the synapse. We good? All right. So now here's a close-up of a myelin sheath generated in the peripheral nervous system. This would be generated by a Schwann cell that would do this, making this fatty layer. And then here we have little gaps, and those gaps are called Nodes of Ranvier, say that, nodes of Ranvier. And so what happens, when that electrical signal travels down the length of the neuron, it doesn't have to go along the whole length, it just hops, kind of like you're skipping a rock across a river, hop, 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 which makes it so much faster. Now, to make a neuron work, okay, something critical to make a neuron function is a very important pump that you know about. Sodium potassium pump. How much of our energy is dedicated to our sodium potassium pumps? 30%. So, isn't that what you always did? Okay. All right. So, I promise I'll never do that again. Okay. So, when you do this, you only have to keep that one region ready to go. Do you see what I'm saying? You don't have to take care of the whole neuron. You just have to make sure the gaps are good to go in order to fire the length of your neuron. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. On your notes, go to your notes where it says myelin sheath. We already have, why doesn't slate do A and blue do B? Go.
It's the myelin sheath is an insulation layer and then neuronal cells. Sorry, nodes of Ranvier are the gaps in the little white layer.
Okay, and the purpose is to insulate, protect, and speed up conduction along the axon. The purpose is to insulate, protect, and speed up conduction along the axon. Insulate, protect, and speed up conduction along the axon. Yes?
What is, you said that something was hopping with the nodes of Ranvier.
Oh, the action potential.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, the action potential. Oh my gosh, whose painting is this over here? Whose? It's beautiful. You can take that home. Your mom better hang that up. Get that frame. Okay. Let's look at some different support cells. Okay. And if you think about it, let's see. What do I want? Nah. Well, yeah. Okay. So let's write them down, and then I'll have you look for them, and then you can talk about them. An astrocyte, neuron health and function. You already have that one. It could be also like a nutritional role, making sure it has enough nutrients. The microglial cell is phagocytic. You see the picture right there, microglial cell. I have it highlighted in yellow to the left. What is that going to do? It's going to make sure what? It's eating, cleaning up that area. Phagocytic, removing bacteria and debris. Removing bacteria and debris. The oligodendrocytes, that's in the central, remember how we have Schwann cells that make the myelin sheath? The oligodendrocytes do that in the central nervous system and form a myelin sheath. You've got that. Epidermal cells, I've got a different slide for that in just a minute. They line ventricles in the brain, producing cerebral spinal fluid. Producing cerebral spinal fluid. And then there are satellite cells that respond to injury and inflammation. So there are a lot of support cells for helping a neuron to function. Okay, so they're the real deal, but all these other cells are contributing. Pick two of your favorites support cells and tell your bio buddy. What are your two favorite support cells? Go ahead.
Okay, stop it right here. The astrocyte, which is for neuron health and function. Oligodendrocytes, or Schwann cells from the myelin sheath. Ependymal cells, so biventricular brain, producing cerebral spinal fluid, and satellite cells respond to injury and inflammation.
Okay, now let's look at these different kinds of neurons, okay? We have a multipolar neuron. Look all the way to the left. Find the cell body, find the dendrites. Okay, we have a bipolar neuron. Take a look at that picture. And we have a unipolar neuron. See if you can differentiate those three names. How do each of those look different, each of those neurons? Discuss with your bio buddy. And let me tell you this, focus on the cell body. That will help you. Go. Uni, bi,
Yeah, you're right.
multi. Do you see it? Okay. All right. Now let's take that. Take a look right here. Okay. Variations in neural structure. Ping pong back and forth. I don't think they're going to hit you this hard with these types of things, but I just want it to be in your vocabulary so it never throws you off. So just ping pong back and forth on those four. Blue, you start at the top.
Bipolar neuron, one dendrite, one axon. One followed is right about here. Any dendrites and no
All right. You got that? So what's the most common up here? Multipolar. Okay, good. All right, so now let's take a look at this. Here is your part of your central nervous system. Central nervous system consists of what two things? Brain and spinal cord. Good. So the types of neurons you can have, did I show you the slide before? Okay, so the types of neurons you could have a sensory neuron. Oh, look, what kind of one is this, though? Unipolar, right. Now, this could be attached to, let's say, an eyeball, okay? And it's a sensory receptor, so is it getting towards or away from your central nervous system? Towards, because sensory neurons are going to bring information in, right? Motor information is going to go out, okay? So it's bringing information in, and this receptor is either triggered or not triggered. There's not any processing. Look up here, okay? You either reached the threshold or you didn't reach the threshold. That's why the sensory neuron cell body is actually outside of the central nervous system. It's not here at the beginning. It's not here in any processing capacity. It's just like, yeah, I'm in charge of the neuron, kind of, okay? It's either this neuron fires or doesn't fire, irregardless of this cell body, okay? Now, this is different. This motor neuron is going what? Out. Now, remember, there are two kinds of effectors. What are your two effectors? Muscles and glands. Those are your only two effectors. Okay? We know there's three types of muscles. What are the three types of muscle? Skeletal, which would be on your skeleton. Now, is this a choice movement? Yes, this is choice on my skeletal. What are the other two?
Cardiac and smooth.
Cardiac and smooth. Cardiac is my heart, and smooth is all my internal organs. Do I have to tell my heart, oh, don't forget to beat? No. Okay, I don't have to do that. Okay, that's part of my autonomic nervous system. And when I think autonomic, I think ANS. Or sorry, I think automatic. That's what I meant to say. But it is the autonomic nervous system. Okay, autonomic versus somatic. Somatic is about choice. So take a look at these motor neurons. Here is a single motor neuron going to my skeletal muscle. So this would be part of my, what kind of nervous system? Somatic nervous system. Okay? Notice where these are going. These are going to what? Smooth muscle, like what I might find in my stomach or my esophagus or my capillary or my arteries and veins. Cardiac muscle, that's going to my heart and glands. This is all part of my what? Autonomic nervous system. Here's something unique about your autonomic nervous system. It has two motor neurons, whereas in your somatic nervous system, there is only one. Okay? So in our autonomic nervous system, we have two. And look right here. The cell body is here in the central nervous system. Notice here, cell body in the central nervous system. Okay, so that's going to be another difference that we're looking at. Okay, I want towards and away. Now, there's a third kind of neuron. Sensory goes in, motor goes out. What's the third one?
Interneurons.
Interneurons. Interneurons are what make up your brain and your spinal cord. Okay, so sensory neurons come, synapse with interneurons, and then motor neurons go out. in that order. Okay, so go to your notes. Go to types of neurons. Sensory neurons are headed towards the what? CNS. And they are usually what? Unipolar. We know what that means. And it's because the cell body is not part of any processing. Okay? Motor neurons are headed away from the CNS and to one of two effectors. Motor neurons are headed away from the CNS and one of two effectors. What are the two effectors?
Muscles.
Yeah. Glands or muscles. Muscles or glands. And they are what? Look at little multipolar. Many dendrites and a single axon. Okay? And interneurons are found in the CNS. They are between the sensory and motor neurons. Between the sensory and motor neurons. I'm curious, how would you classify a sensory neuron if you were talking about your circulatory system? Would you classify it as an artery or a vein?
Sensory neuron.
And how would you classify a motor neuron? Tell your bio buddy, justify your claim.
Yeah, sensory goes to one and then motor go. Is this?
Do you see my analogy? Okay, so what would you classify a motor neuron as? An artery, because arteries go away from the heart. Okay, and a vein would be like a sensory neuron because it goes towards your central nervous system. You see the connection? I mean, there's not a connection between them, but I want you to see the same types of processes. You have things set in place to keep the information going in one direction or another. Now, I would like Slade to go first. This is your neuron. Talk about what you see, and also where would you draw in this picture your central nervous system? So talk about this picture. Okay, what kind of neuron is this? It's labeled. It's a motor neuron. So Slate, talk about where you what you see here, and also tell me where would the central nervous system be drawn. Go.
Okay, the central nervous system will be drawn. Okay, and then that's obviously forward. It's going outward. Direction of conduction is going outward. It's going whatever it is. There's the axon, the node of Ranvier, Myelin Sheath, Dendrites, cell body.
I know, it's happening all the time while you're doing it. Okay, come back to me. So here, okay, here is your motor neuron, and motor neurons go away. Here's your myelin sheath to speed it up, right? This right here, this is where the end of the axon is synapsing with a muscle. You would actually call this a neuromuscular junction, because it's a neuron synapsing with a muscle. Where would you draw your brain and spinal cord in this picture? To the left, where? Up here, right? This would be where your central nervous system, and it's synapsed with it, and it's sending information to this motor neuron who's taking it away and telling that muscle to do what? Contract. Okay? Now, I would like blue. This is your neuron. Go ahead. And I'm going to give you a little something, something down here.
Okay, what?
What did I draw down there, by the way? I drew a tap. And that's the bottom of your foot. Go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, so you and then
Doesn't it what?
if you feel pain,
well, in this case, the cell body won't continue on that once we learn about how it makes brain, once we learn how neurons work. What?
The sensory neurons are in charge of like right?
Yeah. All right, now come back to me. So this sensory neuron, you see how they have receptors? Focus in here, okay? These receptors, you can have, neurons can be receptors. For instance, in your nose, you actually stimulate cells that are true neurons. In your tongue, you have receptor cells that will trigger a neuron, okay? So all of our sensations aren't necessarily by a neuron itself. It could be something that triggers a neuron. There are some pain receptors that you're actually stimulating the neuron. Some are pressure receptors and they trigger something else. Something could be a cold receptor, a hot receptor that triggers that particular neuron. Remember, where does all sensation take place? In the brain. And all neurons speak the exact same language, and that's called action potential. And all our perceptions just interpret those action potentials. Did I talk to you about amputated man? Okay, so for instance, here's a sensory neuron. There are people who have had their leg amputated, let's say below the knee, okay? The neuron that was in their foot, though, it got cut off right here, right? But that neuron still, the sensory neuron is going up, going to their spinal cord, and then going to their brain. So sometimes somebody who has had they're an amputee, their foot itches, but they have no foot. And the reason is the neuron that was in their foot, okay, it's been cut off right there, but that neuron is still in their body going to that place in their brain, and their brain interprets that information because somehow that neuron got fired as my foot itches. They just don't have anything to scratch. Okay? Right? So what I want you to see, okay, is if this neuron fires, if this sensory neuron fires, if something comes along here and triggers it right here for some reason, and it fires, it doesn't matter if you feel anything here or not. This neuron is in fact firing. If you somehow got it to go right here, it's going to fire and it's going to go to your brain and your spinal cord, and you're going to interpret it as being exactly that, right? Because all interpretation is here. If I take my bitter receptors and my sweet receptors and switch them, every time I eat chocolate, it'll taste bitter, and every time I eat something bitter, it'll taste sweet, because it's all the destination in my brain. This is where I perceive everything. Do you follow that? Yes.
Are there any like conditions or like diseases or something where your like things that like you said get messed up? Or they?
Yes, and I think I asked you something about. Oh no, this is going to come up in your sensation one. There are people who might read something but see a color. Yeah. Yes. So there are different. This is tremendous right here. So we could do surgery. Okay, I could cut right here. You actually have no sensory neurons in your brain. So I can pat her head, her cerebrum with her skull off, and she would not even know it. Okay, and I could use an electrode, and she could be like, chocolate chip cookies, because I've stimulated that part of her brain. Okay, it's the full-on Matrix. Are you with me on this? If you know those movies?
Yeah.
Okay? Yes.
This might be stupid, but like, why are some people ticklish and some people aren't?
Well, you have different amounts of receptors, you know, and you have different thicknesses of your skin, and all those things probably are going to lead to part of that. And you know the whole thing, like you can't tickle yourself?
Yeah.
You can't on the roof of your mouth if you take your
What?
tongue. If you take your tongue and rub it on the roof of your mouth, you can tickle yourself.
Yeah, that is a little different. Now, anyway, what I want you to see here is this neuron. It's going to either fire or not fire. The cell body, look right here, the cell body is not part of the process, okay? This neuron was either triggered here or it wasn't triggered. It either reached the threshold and an action potential was stimulated or not, okay? And then this is a picture of an interneuron, okay, in your brain or spinal cord. And at your interneuron, you're going to have a lot of integration and summation, and we're going to talk about that when we get to that point, especially when we talk about senses. Just think about things. You ever gotten in a hot tub where you first get in the hot tub, you put your feet in, or a bathtub, and you're like, hot, 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 hot. And then you're okay with it, right? It's not like it's going, hot, 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 you would get out, okay? So at some point your brain goes, you know, and same thing as your parents, right? They could be calling for you, Maria, 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 and then it's Maria, and that's the first one she hears, and she goes, what? And they go, don't you yell at me. I did. Why were you yelling at me? I've been calling you 10 times. You didn't respond. I didn't know. I was busy doing what? Okay? Right? Yeah.
Does this have to do with, like, you know when you think someone's calling your name but no one actually is?
Yeah, so those are like our little internal messages. Yes. So, guys, come back to me. There's a reticular activating center in our brain which causes you to wake up and pay attention. It's the same thing as like when you're home and your family is around you and there are noises outside, they don't mean anything to you. When you're home by yourself and it's 10 o'clock at night and there's a noise, you're like this. What's that? Is that somebody trying to get in? I don't know. Okay? So it changes. So we'll talk about that. Okay, let's keep going. Okay? Oh, take a look at this picture right here. I'm going to put the tack. Okay? Not it. There are 3 neurons here. Identify them, identify the process. Go.
Okay. So they're all connected. The motor neuron, which, and then you have the central nervous system right there. Well,
You see the 3 different neurons. Now, if this happens like without thinking or processing, these are often called, starts with an R, reflex. You have internal reflexes you don't even think about. This would be like if you're hot, sweating, and things like that. That's an internal reflex. Then somebody could throw a brick at you and you're like, okay? That's, you didn't go, I wonder if that brick is going to hurt. Okay, it would. Okay, those are very protective. If you touch a hot pan, sensory neuron comes up, synapses with an interneuron that goes to your brain, and also with a motor neuron immediately coming back. I don't have to process it because literally if you touch a hot pan, you'll pull away and then you'll go, hot. Okay? You've pulled away before you were even aware that it was hot. This is highly protective, right? Because if I wait, hot, and then pull away, do you see what I'm saying? I could be in more danger. So those kind of reflexes protect us. Yeah.
But like along those lines, if I ever go outside and it's like really hot on the sidewalk and like my feet are really hot, but then I finally stand in the shade, and even if I was out for like 10 minutes, how come eventually if I stand in the shade it'll still
It still feels hot to you? Have you ever looked at the sun accidentally or a bright light and you turn away and you still see it?
Yeah.
That's an overstimulus of that response, and so it's still firing. Yeah, it's still firing. And that's why some people who take drugs, which you would never do, and I can honestly, you know, I tell you everything because I'm super transparent. I've never done LSD or any of those types of things, but people will see colors. It's like, they're like, the tiger's coming out of my poster, okay? And that's because those inhibitory messages aren't going, you know, aren't firing, all right? So now, do we have all of those? We do, okay. It's time, my friends, for a monster.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
You're logging in as a dead person. You guys are so creative. How many teams?
I don't know.
9? 5? Okay. Where are the carton crunchers? Carton crunchers? Freezer burners? Freezer burners. Frostbiters? It's very important to them. Yes. Okay, work with the team right behind you. Are you ready? Here, I'm going to pause this recording just for a minute.